Sven, thank you very much for talking to us today. Can you first of all briefly tell us about your professional merits, and especially within the field of cell therapies, and why you have chosen to work with Xintela?
My history is that I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and I have clinical experience in cell therapies for orthopedic space, particularly in cartilage. I've been working in the industry for approximately 15 years, which included working for Genzyme, where I led the team getting MACI approved in Europe, which was the first combined advanced therapy ever to be approved. More recently, I have been heading up GSK's Cell and Gene Therapy Development Group as part of rare diseases, where we've been developing gene therapies for rare disorders, including Stromvelis, which was the first approved ex vivo gene therapy ever. In addition to my board activities for Xintela, most recently I've also taken on a consultancy basis the Chief Medical Officer role in order to help Xintela grow as we move towards clinical development.
Xintela's partner Codon is a leader in the development of cell therapies and has already taken a product to market, Spherox, which is a drug used to repair cartilage in the knee. Is Codon the perfect match for Xintela, considering you're developing a similar product?
We're very excited about the collaboration with Codon. As you say, they have already taken a product, albeit a chondrocyte development product, to the market. And so they do have the experience of running the clinical trials and the regulatory expertise within Europe for getting a product approved. So this makes them a really strong partner for us. I think it is important to state that the technology that Xintela is developing is a stem cell product, whereas Spherox is an autologous chondrocyte product. So there is a slight difference, and this comes down to the manufacturing, culturing, and quality aspects of it. But we still feel they're amazingly well positioned to be able to work with us in a synergistic manner. So what Codon brings to the party is really the clinical development skills, the regulatory experience, and the working very closely with regulators to define what's needed. From the Xintela side, we bring the technology, the stem cell technology, which has so far evaded many attempts at getting a stem cell approved. I think what we will see coming forward is a very, very strong product that's directed towards a much larger audience in terms of osteoarthritis versus isolated cartilage defects. And this will really change the lives of millions of people as opposed to thousands of people. So we're very excited about this.
As of now, a letter of intent is signed and further negotiations is underway. How would a partnership affect the need for funding upcoming clinical trials, and in what way will Codon's expertise be utilized?
So funding for clinical trials is always extremely important, and it's not just the clinical trials, but it's everything around the clinical trials, from the regulatory to the non-clinical development. And so what we're looking at the moment is both sides will put 50% into this joint venture, and from the Codon perspective, we expect they will be putting in the financial backing and the financial support to run these programs. The Xintela side will put in the expertise, the cell capability culturing, and then also the GMP manufacturing component. So it's very much a 50-50 joint venture where both sides, we really feel, will be able to add up to more than 100%.
Could the partnership with Codon serve as a means to boost interest in your technology platform from other potential partners?
Absolutely. I think the collaboration that we see with Codon will allow the Xintela technology to really accelerate into the clinic. Already we have a lot of interest, even from the preclinical information that we have. So we have already run a large animal, so a horse study, and that was run at Cornell University in the US. And that really showed amazing results. So not only did we see resolution of the cartilage damage from osteoarthritis, but we saw reconstitution of the bone underlying the cartilage, which is critically important to balancing the stresses in a joint. And so this has created a lot of interest, not only from Codon, but from other potential partners in the US, in Japan, and other areas. So really, as we're able to get out and have the clinical data in collaboration with Codon, I think this will really show people that this technology actually works and will really develop some amazing results for patients.
Since April this year, Xintela has its own GMP facility. How common is it for a company of Xintela's size and maturity to have its own production line in-house?
So, for a company as small as Xintela to create a GMP manufacturing facility, or any manufacturing facility for that matter, is absolutely astounding. It just doesn't tend to be done. It only tends to be the larger companies. So companies the size of Xintela tend to use contract manufacturers. So this is very, very unusual. And this was a conscious decision that we took to actually invest money in creating a mechanism whereby we control our own future. So Xintela is now able to not only do manufacturing at GMP level, so good manufacturing practice, but is also able to do process development. And so we're able to do everything that's required to develop an efficacious and safe product in-house. And what that does is decreases the development costs and later on decreases the transfer costs to patients. So we feel this is critically important that we maintain control of our own technology and of our own future, and that way we can create value for patients.
Japan is quite a global leader in developing stem cell therapies. Could you walk us through the purpose of Xintela's partnership with CellSeed and what it could potentially lead to?
Absolutely. So Japan very recently came into the world spotlight from a regenerative medicine perspective. And this was really because Japan had been lacking behind in some of their regulatory mechanisms. And so recently they announced changes to their biological framework whereby a product is able to be put on the market after phase 2 study as long as it has shown safety and an indication of efficacy. And this has created an enormous amount of interest by a number of companies in order to be able to generate technologies and products in Japan because they were able to get paid much sooner. And so what we've found is a number of particularly Japanese companies that are well set up are really scrambling and looking for technology that will help them to move forward rapidly. And our collaboration with CellSeed provides exactly that for CellSeed. They are developing an autologous chondrocyte product. But one of the big challenges with autologous chondrocytes is being able to quality control them, because when you put a chondrocyte into culture, it changes, and it changes into something called a fibroblast, which does not form good cartilage. And this is something that has plagued cartilage development for many, many years. And so the technology that Xintela has will allow CellSeed to define those cells that are in culture and absolutely make sure that they are the correct cells. They are chondrocytes, they are potent, they are identified as chondrocytes, and they're efficacious, and so they'll work well. And so this will provide them with a much better quality and a much better efficacy in terms of their product as they go forward to registration.
Earlier this year, Xintela entered a whole new field, traumatic and CNS disorders such as stroke, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. What's the rationale behind this decision?
So the announcement earlier this year was really, really interesting because it's not exactly new. This is something we've been looking at and developing for a while, and this is part of the Xinmark stem cell technology platform that Xintela has. Up until now, we had focused primarily on the cartilage aspects, and this has allowed us to develop a lot of expertise and capabilities in terms of cell sorting and cell selection. And so we were able to pivot and take that technology and use it to define a really good set of cells and cell markers that we could use within the CNS. And so we thought it was time to really announce this. And the reason for this is that the central nervous system has really been kind of a black box in terms of therapies. Many of the therapies that are available right now are either small molecules or large molecules, and the extent of efficacy we're seeing is just not that great. And so there's an enormous amount of interest developing in using cells and even gene therapies for the CNS. And we felt that this ability to target these stem cells from the CNS really adds so much value to the field, and it really gives us an amazing break and an amazing edge on everyone else developing. So we really thought now is the time to come into this market. I think this will gain us an incredible amount of interest, and already we're starting to see a number of large companies showing an enormous amount of interest in this technology, and we think this will create a lot of value for the company and for the patients.
Only last week we learned that Xintela has formed a new company called Xintela, in which the oncology project will be the main asset. What are the main benefits of a spin-off at this point?
So we've talked a number of times in the past about the oncology and the oncology basis, and the data behind the oncology indications has really been growing exponentially, and we've been very, very excited about it. So the thinking and the thought behind creating a new spin-out is really in order to let this new technology stand on its own. If you look beyond the borders of Sweden, and even in Sweden, the value of companies that are developing in the oncology space has really soared. And this is because they can create a lot of value, but they also cost a lot to develop therapies. And so we really felt that we would be able to create value for the technology, for the space, for the investors, and for the patients by spinning this out and allowing this technology and this platform to stand on its own. This will also allow the people working in Xintela to focus most closely on oncology and be absolutely brutally focused on oncology, and in Xintela allow everyone to focus there on the stem cells and the stem cell platform. So it's really about taking the focus and developing that and becoming really ruthless about developing the best therapies for the patients as quickly as possible.
Finally, based on the characteristics of Xintela's market technology, XinMark, what would you say is its main competitive advantages compared to other cell therapy concepts out there?
So we're extremely excited about XinMark, and I think the reason to be so excited is that it approaches the ability to define stem cells in a slightly different way from all of the other companies out there. So most other companies define it, look at a cell, start developing it, and then try and define it. We approached it in a slightly different way. We used XinMark to actually define the characteristics of the cell that we needed in terms of potency, identity, consistency, and efficacy. And from those criteria, we then selected the cell. So we approached it in a different way. And what this does is it allows us to be much more targeted, much more specific in the cell that we need that's going to do the job that we need it to do. And so I feel this really sets Xintela apart from all of the other companies in having these technologies, and these are all patent protected. So I'm extremely excited about this positive effect that Xintela brings to patients and to investors.